as you all please continue to enjoy. Bon appetit. Just a note, there is, if you want something besides water, one of the pitchers on every table is iced tea, so help yourself. We're going to go into our keynote session. We're very fortunate to have Merlin Namuth. I think he's kind of a local celebrity here in Denver. I told him I was going to introduce him as Mr. Mayor. But close, as the Chief Information Security Officer for the City and County of Denver. I mean, Merlin has over 25 years of experience in cybersecurity. He has a comprehensive experience spanning several industries, including leading 6 different security programs, creating strategy and building security programs from the ground up, advancing existing security programs, mergers and acquisitions, managing incident response teams, digital forensics, compliance, architecture, engineering complex security solutions. What don't you do, Merlin? What haven't you done? But we're fortunate to have, Merlin also was kind enough, we'll see him again to kind of close out the day for a fireside chat. But for the next hour, I'm going to hand it over to him as he takes us through 404, Plan Not Found, building IR strategies that actually work. A big round of applause for Merlin.
Thanks, Andrew. Good afternoon, everyone. How's the conference going for everyone? Everyone enjoying it? Awesome. I see a lot of people I don't know, so it's good to see you. What do you think of the title of my presentation? That was ChatGPT that came up with that title. So I admit, I think it did a pretty good job. So anyhow, so I will, so a little bit of the agenda. So this presentation is about incident response. For those of you, and I see a few people that I've known for a number of years, in the room, that they know that incident response is something I really, really enjoy. I have many years of experience being an incident responder. I've also, which I'll go into some storytelling of being on the receiving end of the FBI knocking on the door saying, we see your systems talking to known threat actors, and that was not a good day. So what I really am focused on here is the SANS 6-step incident response model. Who here has heard of that before? Yeah, we have maybe about a third, so that's awesome. So it'll be a review for those of you, and then for those of you who haven't heard this, I hope that you learned something from it. For those of you who have heard me give talks before, I am very interactive, so for the poor souls who know me, I might call you out by name, but feel free to shout out a question or whatever. I don't want you to just sit there and drone on, listen to me drone on. If you have something you want to contribute or a question you have, please feel free, because we're all here to learn. I don't want you just to be like, oh, I got to listen to Merlin. So I'll go through a 6-step incident response process, and then also how you can apply that when you're back in your work environments. So for those of you who don't know me, yes, I've been doing this a long time. And no, Andrew, I'm not a celebrity. I've just been doing this a long time. Go way back. My first computer was a 486 SX25. Who here remembers that? Who here is old enough to remember that? Yeah, quite a few people. 286. Yeah, that was, and I had to go with the SX because I didn't have enough money to buy the DX chip. Who thought that we need more than 4 megs of RAM? So which is interesting for those of us who are, we're all about the same age who, got into this when the industry really started taking off. It's been a really awesome ride, because when I first got into security, we weren't really doing much. I mean, we had a firewall, we had Snort and antivirus, and that was about it. And as we all know, cybersecurity has gotten a lot more complex. So I feel very fortunate to be the age I am, that my career has been able to grow as the industry has changed. My first security class was a Checkpoint 4.0, and that was run on Sun Solaris. And so this was even before it ran on the Nokia platform. And that's how I actually got interested in security, is after I took that class, I'm like, I kind of like this security stuff. And so, haven't looked back, and I've been pursuing that ever since. As I understand, I've worked in several different industries. I've been in leadership for a number of years. I've been at City and County Denver as the Chief Information Security Officer for 9 months. It's been an awesome ride, and really enjoying being able to serve the residents of the City and County of Denver and improve our security program there. I think that's about it. I do a lot of these talks. I really enjoy it. I've presented at the RSA security conference a number of times, and presented at FutureCon several times. Andrew and I were talking earlier. We're trying to figure out how many. I think this might be my fourth or fifth one. And then there's Charlie Marmon arriving late. So as I said, I'm going to call out people. Charlie's a great person to know. He's our local CISA rep, and Charlie's like, oh, great. But Charlie's a great person. I've literally known him for over 20 years. And so we have a lot of great local resources like Charlie and FBI and Secret Service. So if you get in a situation that you need some help, we have great people to help us through that. And yeah, I started off my career technically, and then moved into leadership after that. So enough of me. So give a little bit of context, because words matter. And I think one of the things that we struggle in security is like, what's the difference between a risk and a threat and a vulnerability, an event and an incident? And I think it's really important for us to make sure that we understand what these terms are and use those correctly. Because when we go back into our workplaces, we're using those words with our leaders and people across other departments, and we need to make sure that we're consistent in that. So an event is something that happened. It could be you booting up your computer. It could be you shutting down your computer. That's an event. It's deviating from the state it's currently in. So obviously we have lots and lots of events all the time with our applications, systems, and environments. An incident is something adverse that's happening, or a possibility of it happening. So of course we want to avoid incidents. I said I like incident response. I also like not having to work on incidents. So we have our controls in place to try to prevent something from happening. So an incident can include all sorts of different things: phishing, malware, data breach, insider abuse, the FBI knocking on my door and saying that you have a problem, Charlie coming to me and saying that we have a problem, other people saying, hey, we see a system from the city and county of Denver that's attacking our systems, like, oh, we have a problem. So it can be a multitude of different things. And also, I think probably everybody understands this, but I just want to mention it that something could start off as an event, like, oh, I have high CPU usage on this system. But then they're like, oh, well, that system's actually compromised, and it's like, it's encrypting a whole bunch of data that the attacker wants to package up and exfiltrate out of your environment. So an event can lead to an incident. It doesn't always, thank goodness, or otherwise we'd be dealing with incidents all the time. So incident handling versus incident response. So SANS, and I'm not here to promote SANS. I love their training. I use their resources all the time. Very early in my career, I took SANS courses, but I'm not here to I'm not paid to say anything. They're not sponsoring this. So I just mentioned it because I like their incident response model. So incident handling, in terms of the SANS definition, is where you're coordinating with your external incident response firm. So if you have a retainer with an external incident response firm and you have an incident that happens that's beyond the capabilities of your team, you're going to call them in. Heck, you might even call up CISA and have them come in and help you, or other organizations to help you with your incident. Incident handling also includes coordinating with your insurance, external legal, and your internal departments. Now, I'll go into more details of that as we go through the different steps. Also establishing a command chain. I was in an incident, it was a number of years ago, and I was leading the security program, and I had just started that role just a few months before that happened. So of course, good timing. I wasn't able to apply everything I wanted to improve that security program, including having a good incident response process. And it was really messy, I have to say, because people didn't understand what their roles were. And I will go into that into the first step here and why preparation is so important. And then incident response is more the technical aspects of dealing with incident, where your goals are to minimize the damage, restore operations, and plug holes, because you don't want the attacker coming back in the same way and that you're running into ransomware or something like that all over again after you just got done cleaning that up. Okay, so the first step in the SANS 6-step incident response model is preparation. Who here has ever put together an incident response plan? Yeah, probably about half people. I have to say that my personal opinion is, of all 6 steps that SANS has for this model, this is the most important preparation. So when I had that incident where the FBI came, we didn't have an incident response plan, and I ran into a lot of challenges with IT, like trying to step all over me. Like, they're like, well, we got to hurry up and restore systems. Well, that's IT's charter, is to make sure that systems and applications and networks are available. And I'm like, wait, we can't do that because the attacker's still in our environment. So we go restore systems, they're just going to compromise them all over again. And it got to be some heated battles between myself and the IT leader, because that person just did not understand the process of what we need to do and the goals of this. It also helps help the organization, like when you have an incident response plan, just helps the organization understand of like, yes, we have a process. If this happens, I know what my role is. And the goal is that we want people to be able to stay in their lanes, because everybody has a role to play during an incident. And who here knows what an incident response playbook is? Okay, a few people. So what a playbook does, it really gives you more of that step-by-step of what to do if you have, like, for example, I've created like ransomware playbooks, for example. And it kind of gives you a step-by-step of like, okay, I need to do this. Okay, next I need to do this. And so it really helps you to be able to stay focused, because when you're working through an incident, your adrenaline is flowing, you're not thinking straight, people are really stressed, you might have your boss, and my case might be the mayor's office, be like, hey, when's this going to be up and running again? At City and County, I support 55 different agencies, so I could have 55 different agency heads coming after me of like, hey, when's this going to be up and running? And so the playbook just really helps you to be able to stay focused when you have all these different pressures coming at you to work the incident and move beyond that. Also, the incident response plan gives you processes for recovering systems. So, it takes a lot of time to put together a really good incident response plan, because you need to identify what are your most important systems. And that can take some time to figure that out. Like, is email most important to your organization? Is it SharePoint, or, could be all sorts of different things. For us at the City and County Denver, it's our safety agency. So police, fire, and Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. So those are our three that we are most concerned about. And those, if we had, hopefully we don't, if we experience some widespread incident that takes down our entire city network, those are the three agencies we're focused on first to bring them up and running. Because public safety is the most important and most critical for us. And it also helps you to identify out-of-band communications, because attackers will sit there. If they have access to your email, they're seeing you email back and forth. They have access to Microsoft Teams or other collaboration platforms. They're seeing you communicate back and forth. And again, I'm not trying to sell the platform, but who here has heard of the platform Cygnus? Just one or two people. So that is a platform that is totally out of band, and you give access to the people who are working on your incident, your legal, could be your crisis communications team, all sorts of people. So it's a out of band, it's off your network. It is a SaaS solution. So that way you can have good communications. You can share evidence that you're seeing and be able to keep that out of the attacker's purview. For us, we have a subscription to it through our cyber insurance policy. So you might want to check with whoever your cyber insurer is and see if a subscription to that is included with your policy. It's called Cygnus. It's spelled really weird. It's like CYGNVS. Yeah, thank you. So it's spelled kind of, I don't know, I guess it's kind of a hip thing. You want to spell it out. So, but definitely check that out, because that might be included in your premium. You may not be aware of that. Cyber insurance, man, that is just so critical. I'm not going to ask everybody, raise your hands if you have cyber insurance policy, because I know some organizations don't. I do highly encourage you to get cyber insurance, because an incident can cost millions of dollars very quickly, and that could be like a small incident. And there's numbers that fluctuate. Like most incidents cost $3 million or $5 million. I don't know where they get those numbers. It's like you read 5 reports, you get 5 different numbers. So we'll just say it costs a lot of money, and it's really behooves your organization to have that protection. Also, have a retainer with an external incident response firm. Again, this is your preparation. You don't want to be negotiating terms with an incident response firm while you're in the middle of an incident, because you have no negotiating power at that point. I mean, they know that you're in a dire situation and you're not going to get the best rates, you're not going to get the best terms for the contract. And I don't know about you, but working through the contract process of the city takes a while, or as the younger generation say, it takes a minute. So it does take a while to get through that. So highly encourage you to get that in place. And so like our retainer we have, it's for a number of hours. And so if I go over those hours, in the contract it says how much per hour it would cost me to use their services if we go above that. So very good to have that. And then also what's really nice about having a retainer with an external firm is that if we don't use it, if we don't have an incident and we don't use any of those hours, we can use those hours for other services that they provide. So it could be doing an incident response tabletop, it could be doing a pen test, policy reviews. They offer all sorts. The major ones do. So highly encourage you on that. So it's not money thrown away to pay for a retainer, because you can use that for other services. Also, you might also want to check into having a retainer with an external legal firm. So depending on your organization, if you have internal legal, you might want to discuss this with them and be like, just have a good conversation with them. Be like, how well do you feel comfortable with, like, if we had an incident that you're able to handle, like, if it's a privacy, involves a PII and you have to make privacy notifications, how equipped are you to, know what the privacy laws in all the different states that impacts. So have those kind of conversations and see what they think about that. So might be something for you to consider, is to have a retainer with outside legal. Also, you want to make sure that you know how to use your detection tools and you have processes behind that. Who here has way too many people on their security team, and if someone goes on vacation, it's not a big deal because you have plenty of coverage? Yeah. Yeah. That's not fair. You're a team of one. So, yeah. So if someone's, of course, stuff always happens on a Friday. It always happens on during a holiday. And so, when you're putting together your preparation of, like, what if my main firewall person is out? Do other people know how to, make firewall rule changes? Because you might have to make some changes, to be able to keep the adversary out of your environment. And so make sure that you have good processes in place. Do lots of cross-training. On my team at the city, we spend 1 to 2 hours a week cross-training within my SecOps team, just to make sure that everybody on the team knows how to do each other's job. So when people are on vacation, that we have that good coverage. Who here has done incident response tabletop exercises? Yeah, several people. That's awesome. Probably about half, maybe a little bit more. So it's going to be more popular, I would say. Probably just in the last 3 or 4 years, that's going to be more of a thing. We kind of talked about it before, and some people would do it, most people didn't. But I think that's going to be more of a common thing. And then the cyber insurers definitely want to see that you're doing incident response tabletop exercises, and it'll help you with your premium as well if you do that, because they know that you're more prepared to be able to handle an incident. Tabletop exercise, again, when you're doing a tabletop exercise, you want to make sure that you're going back to using the right language, that it's not, the purpose of it isn't to point out that people don't know how to do something. If they don't know how to do something, it's because you don't have the process documented, you don't have it in your incident response plan. So make sure you frame it that way, that if someone makes a mistake during the tabletop exercise, that's a good thing, because that shows you where your gaps are, and just help people understand that it's not anything personal about them or how effective they are in their job. It's all about testing the plan. And again, practice. I mean, I know some organizations that'll do like tabletop exercises like every month. I'm not there yet with my team at the city, but you want to practice before a real thing happens, because when the real thing happens, then everybody knows what to do, and it's going to flow smoother. Now, Granted, every incident is different. I've been through many incidents. I used to work on an incident response team at Lockheed Martin, and I'll just say that we were busy. That's about all I can say about that. But it was, I learned a lot, and it was, we had full-time incident response team, and that's all we did. And so it's really good to, have tabletop exercises because, for most of us, we might deal with, I don't know, maybe just a few incidents a year, and hopefully none of them are really big. And then when the really big one happens, it's like, oh, wait, we didn't practice this. So again, you want to be prepared for that. Your goals must be aligned to the business goals. So you might think that email is most important, and for us, it's like, no, we need to make sure that the police officers have access to their application, so that when they pull someone over, they're able to do a quick check on that individual and see if there's outstanding warrants, from the laptop in their computers. That's going to be most important. That fire is able to find the address and be able to respond accordingly. Also, our drones. The city is using lots of drones and continues to expand that. That the drones are available, so that helps protect firefighter and police safety. So those things are definitely more important to us than making sure that email is up for sure. So every organization is different. Make sure that you are aligned to the business, because if you are not, that's going to put you in a very difficult situation. I think there's a question in the back.
Check one, check. Just to remind everybody, sorry to interrupt, we're in a virtual mode, so nobody can hear you online when you're asking the question. So just one sec.
Can you talk a little bit about how you went through the process to where you, risk rank sort of what's most important, right? Because in the example you gave, obviously, the cops having their drones or the police having whatever is more important than my email, right? But there's obviously going to be situations where the firefighters are saying this is more important than what the police are saying, than what, the different stakeholders are saying. So how do you sort of determine what's number one, what's number two, number three, et cetera?
Well, we definitely have some that are all number one, especially because our safety agencies, the safety agencies are the most important. And so they have their priorities. That's going to be number one. And so we have several of those that are number one. And really how we figured out the risk ranking is just, building those relationships across all the various agencies. I've met with the mayor's office, I've met with the city council, understand what their priorities are as well, the agency heads. One of my colleagues here is from audit, and he has a lot of visibility across the city, so we've had a lot of conversations about that as well. So yeah, it's really having lots of conversations with people. It's no fancy quantitative thing, like using FAIR or anything like that, but it's just really having those conversations with folks. Yeah, exactly. I think I did something different. Oh, I don't know what happened there. I don't know what happened to the display here. Okay.
It's not really a question so much as I wanted to add to something that you said. When it comes to tabletop exercises, especially if you're a small organization, it's a little daunting, right? Like trying to get the materials together, everything.
Yeah.
What I found was my cyber insurance company actually provided us materials for that. A lot of the organizations that are out there will too, So I just wanted to throw that out there because it is one of those things that a lot of people are, well, how do I design this? How do I do that? There is help out there for you.
Absolutely. And also, I didn't say this in my background, so I've been a practitioner, I've been a leader, and then prior to coming to the city, I actually worked for an insurance company, and I worked for their services arm where we put together tabletop exercises and did policy reviews and such. And there's definitely both an art and science to putting together a good tabletop exercise. There's a lot out there that kind of make me cringe, especially after having that experience of my previous employer, but yeah, definitely reach out. There are a lot of resources out there that would help you put together a good exercise, because if it's a bad exercise, again, as security, we're trying to build consensus. We're trying to get support across our organization. If we do a poor tabletop exercise, that doesn't bode well for us with gaining respect and credibility within our own organization. So you want it to be a really solid exercise. So again, you can use your incident response firm. They do tabletop exercises. To your point, like our primary insurer, they have. They'll come in and help us. Since we are critical infrastructure, CISO will come in and do one. So there's a lot of resources out there, even for both public and private sector. So I talked a little bit about my experience of not having an incident response plan. I think I pretty much covered all of that. Okay, so the next step is identification, and again, it's like is high CPU usage on a system, is that an event or is it an incident? It might be both. We don't know, and so you kind of have to figure that out, and that's where security and IT need to work really closely together, because like your sysadmins, they know the rhythm of the systems and the networks, and it's like they can almost put their ear up to it, and they know it's like, oh yeah, it's humming in the right frequency, and I know everything is right. But they do often know, like, is this normal behavior or is this not? And sometimes they're the first to know. Also, it can be reported by various means. Like, I had the FBI come and tell us that we had an incident. We didn't know that we had it. None of our tools detected it. Hopefully your security tools will be able to detect it. Your managed security services provider can also notify you of that. An employee calling the help desk saying, yeah, something's really weird with my system. I got this note up that says I'm supposed to pay money. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we need to check that out. Talk about system administrators not being able to access resources. And so it's interesting, especially with as complex as the environment is at the city and county of Denver, is that oftentimes when technology services, so I report to the CIO, and our department is called Technology Services. Oftentimes when there's some sort of system outage or network outage or something like that, my team is called in, which is great, because it might, again, that event might turn into an incident, and we need to make sure that there's nothing from a security standpoint that's happening that we need to engage our incident response plan. Threat intelligence, man, there's a plethora of threat intel, and you get from your different security vendors, you get from third-party resources. So that might notify you of like, hey, I need to go look at these TTPs, and I might have that, IOCs, and I might have that happening in my environment. So threat intel is good, and then third-party notification. So I actually had this happen last week, that another municipality had reached out and really wanted to talk to me in a really bad way, and so we're like, oh, do we have something going on? Referencing back to like, do we have a compromised system that is like, pounding them or something? Unfortunately, it turned out to be nothing. It was just something that they had discovered in their environment and wanted to make sure that we didn't have the same thing going in our environment, which we didn't. So it's like, ooh, okay, good. So, and then also, be careful when you're identifying if it's an incident, not to limit the scope on what is compromised. So not to pick on the state of Colorado, they had their ransomware incident, several years ago now, and they did a great job. They brought in a lot of people. I'm personal friends with the CISO. She did a great job at that. They thought that they had the threat actor out of the environment, and they thought they had that cleaned up within a week. And then they didn't realize that the threat actor was actually in other parts of the environment that they didn't know. And so they're still there. So it can take you a while to figure out if your environment is clean for you to move on. And again, you might need to do a full forensic investigation. It's like, is that high CPU usage indicative of something bad? May not be. It might be just something going on with that application. There's high usage at that time. So you might have to do full forensics to figure out if something is going on there. And unfortunately, it's kind of a judgment call. You hope you're making the right decision, but sometimes, as we've read in some of the big breaches that have happened, that the security tools alerted on something, but it was noisy, and they thought it was nothing, and it turned out to be something. but then you can also spend a lot of time working on something that ends up not being anything at all. And so it can be really hard to make that call. Okay, so the next step in the 6-step model is containment. The main goal is stop the bleeding. If the threat actor is exfiltrating sensitive information or your intellectual property, you want to stop that. And so you might have to put in some firewall rules to stop that, or make other configuration changes in your security tools. And this kind of also goes back into the preparation of who has the authority to determine if you're going to unplug from the internet. I mean, is the bleeding so bad that you need to unplug from the internet because they're stealing the secret recipe for Coke and that's your whole IP? Do you unplug from there? So that comes in your preparation of like who has that authority. And so when you're putting together your incident response plan, make sure you document who has the authority to make big calls like that. You also want to do some evidence. I'm sorry. Let me back up. So we're stopping the bleeding, but we're also balancing that with we don't want to stomp all over the evidence because depending on the nature of your incident, it might turn into that you're engaging outside law enforcement to prosecute and outside attorneys. And so you want to make sure that you're not stomping all over the evidence while you're stopping the bleeding. So my recommendation is that as whatever changes you're making, like if you're making changes to firewalls, if you're unplugging systems or whatever, that you're documenting that. So that way, when it comes to gathering the evidence to be able to prosecute, that everybody is aware of what you did, and it's like, oh yeah, these timestamps changed because we made this change in the system. So make sure you document that. And a good piece of advice that I received when I took the SANS incident handling class, like 20 years ago. Ed Scotus, I'm sure some of you know that name. Great guy, very intelligent. His recommendation was, if you're moving too fast working your incident to take notes, you're moving too fast. And so he's like, slow down. He also recommends that you have like someone who's their only job is to take notes of the actions and steps that you're taking to work the incident. And then so again, I talked about that. Don't perform actions may overwrite and delete crucial evidence. So you might need to gather evidence before you're like, oh yeah, we're going to like make this change to be able to stop bleeding. But maybe you need to grab a quick image of that system first before you make those changes. So the bleeding is going to happen for a little bit longer. You gather the evidence and then you stop the bleeding. Again, you have to make sure that your leadership is okay with that decision. And so you want to have lots of transparency during this to make sure that leadership is okay with the actions that you're taking. Look for lateral movement. I worked an incident years ago where the local admin password was the same on all systems. And thank goodness for Microsoft Labs. That works really, really well so we don't have that problem. But this was like probably about 20 years ago that we had that incident. And that was pretty common back then, that you just had the same password for local admin. And so once the attacker cracked the password for that, they were able to move through our environment however they wanted. So clearly we've hardened our environments more, so we don't have that, but lateral movements can still happen through other means. It could be through different vulnerabilities. That if you have several systems that have the same vulnerability that you haven't patched, they might be moving from system to system, exploiting that vulnerability using like Metasploit to be able to move between them. And check for persistence, like the example with the state of Colorado that was unfortunate for them. That the attacker was still in the environment. They didn't realize it. They found out late. They figured that out pretty quickly later because the attacker had ransomed some other systems. And they're like, oh, well, we still have a problem here, and that turned into a much longer incident for them to work. So some of the things that we might do to stop bleeding could be we're going to isolate the system. If it's a workstation, that's much easier. If it's a critical server, that's much harder. And that's, again, goes back to that. I keep referring back to preparation, that you need to make sure that people know, like my boss, the CIO, that she knows that she might have to make some of these decisions, because that's not a decision I can make as a CISO. I can recommend it, but ultimately it's for her to give approval that we're going to do that. You might be patching systems. Again, you're changing the system, so do you have all your evidence collected that you need before you start making changes to that system to patch it? Changing firewall rules, removing accounts, because attackers like to create accounts so they can maintain that persistence and they can come back into your environment later. So look for any unusual user accounts that were created. And then, like I said, unplugging from the internet. So the next one is eradication. So when I had put together this presentation earlier this year, I come to find out, of course, SANS has changed some things since I took the incident handling class, almost 20 years ago, and first learned this process. And so they make a distinction between containment and eradication, and I'm kind of still a bit on the fence whether I agree with how they've changed this. But they say containment is stopping the activities, the ongoing activities that the attacker is doing, and eradication is undoing what the attacker did. But as you could tell, like when I talked about containment, I talked about some of the stuff, undoing some of the things that the attacker did. So there's a little bit of a gray area there. I think the main thing is make sure that you're doing all these steps. Whether it's you want to call it containment or eradication, just make sure that you're covering all these steps. And so eradication, it could be resetting compromised accounts, removing processes that they've created and accounts that they created, patching vulnerabilities, and performing root cause analysis to prevent the occurrence. One of the things that people have talked about is do you pay the ransom or do you not pay the ransom? And there's been instances where organizations have paid the ransom, and then the same threat actor comes back in and ransoms them again, after they've been paid, because the organization didn't fix the holes of how the threat actor was able to get into the environment again. So you want to make sure, eradication, that they're completely out of your environment before you move to the next step of restoring, because if you start restoring, they're just going to compromise you all over again, and you're just going to be spinning your wheels and not making progress. So recovery, so unlike the containment eradication, it focuses on the business impact and restoring business operations. So going back to your question of how do we make the risk and determination of what systems need to come up first? If we had like a major incident at the city, that's really focusing on this recovery of what the business impact is. So again, we want to restore systems, data, and configurations to the pre-incident. I'll jump down to the last bullet, and I'll come back to the other ones. Is that be careful on this, because your insurance will not pay for betterment. So betterment is that you're restoring bringing your environment to a better state than what it was before it got compromised. You're like, wait, I got compromised because I was in a bad state, but then the insurance isn't going to pay for me to be in a better state to keep it from happening again. So it's very odd. It's very weird. The insurance won't pay for that. So just be careful of that. That as you're like, well, we have Windows 10, we should upgrade to Windows 11. Insurance isn't going to pay for that. JP?
Thank you. Yeah, spot on, right? I mean, it's pretty good and engaging presentation. Thanks, Merlin. So the reason I raised my hand is that there's other ways to decrease insurance premium, and wanted your take on that. For example, if you did betterment, then the vulnerability management and the third-party insurance scans of your environment, whether they're using CyberSecurity or something else, is going to show lesser number of vulnerabilities, and therefore they actually do decrease the insurance premium. So is that an alternate take that you've considered to ensure that you do get paid back for your betterment?
Well, that would come before the incident, though. I mean, that's when you're like if they're using BitSight or security scorecard or something like that. That's an external view into your environment, and that's really going to come more into play when you're negotiating your coverage and your premium. And insurance companies do use those. So I don't know if you've been through that before, but they will say, your score is this. And so make sure that before you start that you run some scans yourself and see, do you have some external facing vulnerabilities, because they'll find that and they'll reduce your coverage or increase your premium price for that. So the bare minimum I'm talking about is that, say for example, you didn't have like a vulnerability scanner in your environment. You got owned, you had an incident. Insurance is going to pay for you to buy a vulnerability scanning solution to put in your environment. So that would be betterment. So just be careful of that. That could be a little bit of a slippery, tricky slope there. You're also, when you're doing recovery, you're also monitoring for signs of residual threats or vulnerabilities. Again, you don't want to. You want to you hope that you have all your holes plugged, but you still want to keep monitoring for that and make sure that the attacker isn't coming back in and then like totally messing up your recovery and you got to start all over again. And fixing your root cause. And this might take a little bit of time. Like maybe your password policy needs to be changed. It's like, okay, well, for user passwords that may not be so much an issue. What about like your one of the buzzwords this year at the RSA conference was non-human identity. I'm old school, service accounts. I mean, so it's like, how hard is it going to be for you to change passwords on service accounts? How often do you actually change them? When's the last time you've changed them? It's like, ooh, that's much harder. That could turn into like a 3 or 6 months project or longer to be able to change the passwords on your service accounts. So this can turn into different security initiatives that you need to run after to improve your environment. Lessons learned is also really important. I mean, all these are really important. I think preparation and lessons learned are the most important to your success. Because while say for example, you've done your tabletop exercises, you've tested your incident response plan several times, people know what to do. Believe me, with all the incidents I've been through, every incident is different, and you're always going to find gaps. And the lessons learned is so important. Of like, oh yeah, we didn't have so-and-so's cell phone number. I mean, you're going to find things like that when you go through an actual incident. And so it's really, really important to have a lessons learned meeting with everybody who was involved in the incident to talk about what went well, what didn't go so well, what do we need to focus on and improve. Because again, the threat actors keep changing how they're coming after us. Our environments change all the time. We have new applications coming into our environments. We have applications leaving our environments. We're just in a constant state of flux. And so it's really important to understand what could we have done better and make this more effective next time. So again, we want to know what the root cause was. Was it maybe, in one instance I had, it was a phishing email. And 3 different people clicked on that phishing email. It's like, okay, well, how did they have access to that phishing email? Okay, do we have a problem with our email filtering solution? So we got to check that out. Okay, so if the email filtering is like, okay, well, it's just something that happened to get through because no security tool is 100%. So, we are going to have things that come through. Unfortunately, that's just life. But okay, so they clicked on it. So then, how did it turn from them clicking on that to then the attacker like having full access in our environment? Okay, well maybe we need to restrict some permissions. Maybe they have admin permission and they don't need that. So that's where you can really learn a lot of those things of helping you set your roadmap of what do we need to do to improvements to make the environment to make it better so this doesn't happen again. Also, this is also, while this is a real incident, it is an opportunity to look at your incident response plan. What changes do we need to make that better? Again, that's always, you should always, well, not always, let me take it back. You should, at least on an annual basis, review your incident response plan. Because again, everything's in constant state of flux, and your incident response plan is a living, breathing document. What improvements need to be made in prevention and detection? Maybe you need to tune your tools. Maybe you need to change out some of your tools. Maybe that vendor, for a detection tool, maybe the vendor like really fell down on that, whereas one of their competitors would have detected it. And so you really got to dig into this and see, ask some of those hard questions of what you need to do. Again, we're going to update our incident response plan policies and technologies with what's learned from the incident. I always like doing application slides, so this is something that, for those of you who have been to RSA, they always require presenters to do that. I think it's good because in that way it's like, okay, this was a lot of information, now what? Where do I go from there? Highly, highly recommend if your organization doesn't have a cyber insurance, start having those conversations immediately with your leader, with legal, with finance, and make them aware. Maybe they're not aware that you should have cyber insurance, and explain to them why it's important and why you think that your organization should have that. Also review your incident response plan. Again, you should be doing that at least on an annual basis. I know some organizations do it on a semi-annual basis because their environments change so rapidly. Also, obtain a retainer with a reputable incident response firm. And then the last part that I said is on your insurance panel, on your insurer's panel. So your primary insurer for your cyber insurance policy is going to have a list of who they're going to pay for an incident response firm, also for external legal. I think they'll also include on the panel, like for external crisis communications company. I did not include that, but the incident that I had, the organization I was working for did have a retainer with a crisis communications company. It's for other areas of the business, but we're able to use that for a cyber incident because when the FBI came and told us we had that incident, it was literally 3 weeks before the quarterly earnings call. And the CFO was like, what do I say during the earnings call? He's like, I got to say something because if it comes out later that we had a much bigger incident, the markets just aren't going to handle that very positively towards the organization. And so the crisis communications company was able to, come up with a good messaging for the CFO to say during the quarterly earnings call. He had very few questions and went really smoothly. Also, keep in mind that, say for example, if we had a big incident city and we had to send people home, you're gonna have people posting on X and on social media like, I don't know what's going on. They sent us home and I couldn't access anything with my computer. And of course, the media is gonna latch onto that very quickly. Crisis communications company can help you with your internal messaging as well to the employees, so they know what's going on, and that way you're you're able to get in front of that before media gets a hold of that and creates other challenging issues for yourself. And so, so make sure that you're reviewing what your insurer will pay for. Now, just because the IR firm that maybe you already have a retainer with is not on your insurer's panel, doesn't necessarily mean they won't cover for their services. You just need to check with your insurer and make sure that they would cover if you had to engage them for during an incident. And then I would say in the next quarter, make sure you put together a tabletop exercise. And so my previous organization where I was working for a services company, we did 3 flavors of tabletop exercises. One was with just IT and IT staff and IT leaders. The next was with the business leaders. And then the third was with the board of directors, because the board, they're going to be contacting me from media, and they need to know how to respond to that, as well as if there's an incident in your organization, they need to know what questions they should be asking your organization's leadership of how the incident is being handled, because they're on the hook, they're accountable, they're in a position of trust, and so it's important for them to understand what their role is as well. Just a couple resources. I'll leave that up so you can take a picture of that with your phone. The first one is just a link to the SANS 6-step incident response model. The last one is just a presentation that I gave years ago. I know, since we're local here, I was the last person to lead the security program at Sports Authority, and that's what that presentation is on: is how to keep a company secure that's going out of business. So there might be some tidbits in there of things that you can learn from that. But with that, are there any other questions or comments anybody has? I think there's one over here.
Yeah, incidents come in different sizes, small, medium, large, of course, and they come from different groups, not just security, but also even other groups in IT. My question is, do you have a tracking tool or a searchable database so that when people have an incident, they can go to the system, search for other incidents in the past? Because I can't tell you how many times we experience an incident, we sit there and go, we experienced this 3 or 4 years ago, and we're searching for the information. How did we fix it before? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, definitely. We do have that in our ticket management system. So we can go back and look at how we handle those. We also have knowledge base articles that we've written internally, so that way we can refer to those. Because, yeah, it's hard to. I mean, we're so busy. I mean, everybody's so busy in their jobs, and it's hard to retain that level of knowledge of what you did. You might have like a high level, like, oh yeah, I know we ran into that, but then you just can't recall that information. So yeah, so we retain those details in our knowledge base articles, internal white papers, and in our ticketing system. This one in the front here.
Hi, so my question is that I know that many cyber insurance policy providers recommend that you call them as the first line of defense in incident response now. Do you recommend having a retainer outside of that as long as they're paneled, or do you recommend just using their incident response triage?
It depends. So it depends on who your insurer is. The primary insurer that we have at the city, I call my IR firm. I don't call them. But then I've been in led other programs where using a different insurer, and they wanted us to call them first. So it really depends on the provider. So make sure you look at your policy and see what they want you to do.
So I have to ask, Merlin, how are you getting the board to run tabletop exercises on a regular basis?
Well, it's not regular basis, so it's like it'll happen like maybe once annually and maybe once a year. But it's really, as a CISO, I'm presenting to the. I'll go back to private sector. Because public sector is different. But in private sector, I was presenting to the board once a quarter. So they heard me, they knew me. I had a relationship with them, and so they understood the importance of cybersecurity because I was telling them that. I've shown them metrics of my program, and so I had that established relationship already. And I'm like, hey, here's, I really recommend you do this. And they're like, oh yeah, we wouldn't have any idea what to do. So. A lot of this, a lot of our job in security is relationship building and building that trust with people. Was there one in the back or? Okay, I don't think so. Any other questions? No, the AV guys told me that I had like 11 and a half hours of battery time, so we can keep going. All right. Okay, well, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Mm.